Most people focus on the moment compliance is adopted. The policy is signed. The framework is approved. The controls are implemented. The audit passes. There's a sense of relief. A sense of achievement. Sometimes even celebration. But the real story doesn't start there. It starts the day after. Because compliance isn't proven in the moment it's introduced. It's revealed in how it's lived. Today, we're looking at what really happens after compliance adoption. When the excitement fades. When teams return to their routines. And when the true test of governance begins quietly, behind the scenes. Let's start with the moment everyone remembers. Compliance adoption often looks like a milestone. There are presentations. Policies are documented. Frameworks are aligned with standards, maybe ISO, SOC1, AIFMD, or internal governance models. Leadership feels confident. Because at that moment, everything makes sense. It feels necessary. It feels responsible. It feels like progress. The assumptions are powerful. Now we're covered. This reduces risk. We're doing things the right way. Auditors will be satisfied. We've future-proofed the business. And in many ways, those assumptions aren't wrong. At the time, this decision made sense. But what's rarely asked is, what happens when the spotlight moves away? The day after, things still look fine. In fact, they often look even better. There's a short-term calm. Documentation is complete. Controls are mapped. Responsibilities are assigned. People feel reassured. You might even see early wins. Faster audit responses. Clearer accountability on paper. Stronger external perception. Positive feedback from stakeholders. And this creates a powerful belief. The system works. But here's the subtle truth. At this stage, compliance hasn't been tested yet. It's only been introduced. No pressure has been applied. No real-world friction has emerged. No conflicting priorities have challenged it. And so, everything still feels aligned. This is where the invisible shifts begin. Not dramatically. Not obviously. But consistently. Because compliance doesn't exist in isolation. It enters an environment that already has deadlines, commercial pressure, human habits, legacy processes, resource constraints. And slowly, behavior begins to adapt. People start interpreting controls instead of following them strictly. Shortcuts appear, not out of negligence, but out of necessity. You might hear things like, "We'll document it later. This is low risk, we can skip the full process. We've done this before, it's fine. Let's not slow this down." These are not acts of defiance. They're small compromises. At the same time, new pressures emerge. Teams balancing compliance versus delivery. Managers prioritizing outcomes over process. Individuals trying to stay efficient within rigid frameworks. And this creates early trade-offs. Compliance versus speed. Control versus flexibility. Governance versus growth. None of these decisions feel critical in isolation. But together, they begin to reshape the system. The consequences don't arrive loudly. They arrive slowly. At first, nothing seems wrong. Then, over time, documentation becomes inconsistent. Controls are applied unevenly. Exceptions become normalized. Ownership becomes unclear. And eventually, something triggers attention. An audit finding. A client question. A regulatory request. An operational failure. And it feels sudden. But it wasn't. Because nothing broke overnight. It evolved. Every small compromise. Every delayed update. Every "just this once" decision. Compounded. Until the system no longer reflects what was originally designed. Most people don't ignore problems. They simply don't see them yet. Because human psychology plays a role. There's overconfidence. We passed the audit, we're fine. There's process blindness. People follow steps without questioning whether they're still effective. There's emotional investment. We worked hard to build this, it must be working. And there's organizational inertia. Once a system is in place, changing it feels harder than maintaining it. So instead of questioning the system, people adapt around it. And slowly, visibility decreases. Not because people don't care, but because the system no longer reflects reality. People with experience don't judge compliance by the moment it's adopted. They judge it by what happens after. They ask different questions. How is this actually being used? Where are people deviating, and why? What decisions are being made under pressure? What's happening that isn't documented? They don't just look at controls. They look at behavior. They monitor signals like repeated exceptions, delays in documentation, workarounds becoming routine, misalignment between teams. Because experienced professionals understand, compliance is not a static framework. It's a living system. And if it doesn't evolve with the business, it slowly disconnects from it. The lesson isn't, don't adopt compliance. The lesson is, plan for the day after. Because the real success of compliance isn't implementation. It's sustainability. One mindset shift. Don't ask, is this compliant? Ask, will this still work under pressure? One framing principle. Design compliance for real behavior, not ideal behavior. And one long-term question. What will this look like 6 months from now, when no one is watching closely? Because that's where the truth lives. Most compliance frameworks don't fail at the moment they're adopted. They fail in the days, weeks, and months that follow. Not because they were wrong, but because they weren't lived. If this changed how you think about compliance, that's the goal. This is the day after. And next week, we'll explore what happens after outsourcing critical operations. When control shifts, but responsibility doesn't. Subscribe to Governancepedia for weekly insights into what really happens inside governance, risk, and oversight, beyond the policies.